having a good day today. Today we're going to talk about something pretty important to backpacking, the actual backpack. I have got a collection of packs down here that we will get into, not specifics about brands and stuff like that. That's maybe for another video, but just the types. As the name implies, backpacking, the backpack's kind of important. If you're just getting into this, you're watching videos, you're talking to people, there's two kind of definitive labels that backpackers get. You're either a traditional backpacker, which is something where you're going to carry a backpack, something of this nature, lots of storage, lots of pockets, big frame, heavy pack, or you're going to be an ultralight hiker, tiny little backpack, weighs basically nothing, very stripped down. Those are kind of your categories. Here's the reality, and you do with this comment what you want. I've said this phrase, I think, probably in the shoe video. I don't know that I said it in the clothing video. I've said it in other videos. Probably the most important phrase that goes around in the backpacking world, so to speak, is hike your own hike. Which is probably the backpacker and hiker way of saying, just worry about yourself. Like, I don't know another nice way to say it. I've seen people ask simple questions on different Facebook groups and just get blasted for, like, why would you want to carry that backpack? It weighs 4 pounds. You don't know what you're doing. You should be trying to carry 7 pounds worth of stuff. All kinds of stuff like that. And the positive is I've never experienced that attitude out in real life. And any of the times I've been on trails, any of the times that I've been around other hikers, even doing a section hike on the AT where I was with a bunch of AT thru hikers, I was carrying this giant Osprey pack really just because I only had that one or a very lightweight one, and being out for 4 days at the time, I wasn't sure that that would be very comfortable, and I know this pack is comfortable. And I had more of them asking me if I sell backpacking gear. When I started my thru hike, they assumed I was just one of them. I don't really know another way to put it. There was never a moment where they looked at me and were kind of like, well, you don't belong here because of the gear you're carrying. So right out of the gate, that whole mindset of if you're not doing it a certain way, you're doing it wrong is completely ridiculous. Yes, you want to pay attention to weights and things, but that's not everything. When it comes to picking a backpack though, there's really 3 different styles, if you ask me. And this is kind of the way I would say. Your main out of the gate, old school, traditional style. These are packs that are going to have a pretty substantial frame to them. Usually going to be in the 50 liter to 80 plus liter size. Lots of pockets, lots of different things for organization, and probably going to weigh 4 pounds or more. That's kind of your traditional backpack, okay? Then you're going to get into what would be considered more of a lightweight style backpack, which a lot of times tends to still have a lot of the features from the traditional ones. Pockets, a lid that you can unclip and open up, store stuff in there. Still have some, maybe like a stretchy mesh pocket on the front, side pockets to put things in, hip belt pockets, but still has a pretty good frame on it. And those are going to be kind of anywhere from, I'd say, 2.5 to 3 pounds. Again, this is not science. This is, call it the bearded backpacker unit of measure for backpacks, whatever you want to call it. This is just how I organize it. And then you're going to have more of the ultralight styles, which again, you can get something like this. That's a pack that weighs right at 2 pounds, but still has a little bit of a frame to it, usually like a wire like hoop frame, or some of them just have like aluminum stays that run down the back, but something that still resembles a frame. Or then you're gonna have the complete ultralight frameless type backpack. There's no frame to this. This particular one, the only real frame is the sit pad that's in here that I can take out of these mesh sleeves, pull that out, and then there's nothing to it. A lot of times those won't even have hip belts. Those are your pack weighs a pound, less than a pound sometimes. Super ultralight type backpacks. To start this whole game of what kind of backpack you would want to look at, or when you're researching backpacks, you've really got to ask yourself, what type of trips am I going to be taking? What kind of backpacker am I going to be? And it may seem like a silly question until you start to do this, but for me, and a lot of people in this world, for a lot of people that do this, there's two different types of backpacking trips, two different types of backpackers, I guess. There's the type that I'm doing this for fun at camp. Like the winter trip I just posted on here, we hiked 2 miles, and mainly most of the trip was spent at camp. Most of the day was not spent hiking 10, 12, 14 miles up and down hills, up on mountain ridges. And then there's the opposite, where you're on the trail 10, 12, 14, 18, 20 plus miles a day. The fun for you is the walk. That's what you're after. You're really only looking at camp as I've got to stop to eat dinner and have a shelter to sleep in. And then as soon as daybreak hits, or sometimes even before, I'm waking up, making my coffee, eating breakfast, and out. And the whole rest of my day is spent walking. You kind of got to figure out which style sounds more fun to you. For me, I kind of like to do a combination of both. That's kind of why I have a giant collection of backpacks. I like both types of trips. But if you're, gearing up to say, hey, 5 years from now, I want to go do a thru hike. I want to go knock out a 100-mile trail. I want to go knock out a 50-mile trail. I want to go knock out the 2,200 miles of the Appalachian Trail. Whatever the case may be, then you're probably going to want to go more in that ultralight kind of range. If you're the type that says, I'm not worried about crushing miles, I'm not saying there won't be a day where I hike 10 miles, but most of my ideal trips are going to be just to get out in the woods, away from people, and have a good time at camp. Then something more traditional, or maybe the lightweight, but still that more traditional style, might be more of what you want. They really say, I don't know who they is, most of us that do this, I guess, would say, your backpack should really kind of be the last thing that you buy, which seems counterproductive because it's called backpacking. But the problem is, if I go into this saying, nope, I want to be ultralight, I don't want a big heavy backpack, I want to buy something that weighs, I want to be in this world. Pound backpack, basically frameless, only carrying 20 pounds at the most with me with food and water. You can do that, but you're really locking yourself into very expensive gear to make this work. The types of shelters you would need to use, sleeping bags, sleeping pads, everything else, much more expensive. So a lot of times if you're just starting out, this may not be the best route to go. Which is typically why people, when they first start in this game, end up the more traditional route. There's more options with these. You have a little more space to pack things. A lot of times if you're doing this stuff for the first time, you don't want to spend $600 on a tent. Maybe you find a good deal on a used 2-person one for $250 that weighs 3.5, 4 pounds. It's somewhat bulky, but it's still a backpacking tent. I don't want to spend $400 on a sleeping bag. So you get a 2.5 pound, 3 pound synthetic sleeping bag. Those are bulkier items. So that's where these more traditional styled backpacks kind of come in handy. It looks kind of funny because I just have sleeping bags shoved in these to give them some kind of shape. But that's where these types of packs come in. They've got a lot more, maybe like outside storage to strap stuff to. They got a lot more pockets, just a lot more space. This particular one is the Osprey Atmos 65. I think anything from 55 to 70 liters is probably really perfect for someone who's just kind of starting out, or maybe is not quite sure what direction they want to go. It gives you the flexibility to have bulkier gear, but it's not so big. You buy an 80-liter pack, you're shoving 80 liters worth of stuff in it. I mean, again, I've been doing this for a long time, and that winter trip that we took, I decided to carry this pack, and I used a ton of the space in this, which I did not need to do. But because I had the space, I used it. So there is some of that. I mean, you don't need to be going after an 80-liter pack for most situations. Maybe if you're going on like a 10-day expedition and you need a whole lot of food, then that's one thing. But for the most part, if you're just going to be doing an overnight, 1 night, 2 nights, just getting into this 55 to 65 liter size is probably really kind of the sweet spot for that. But the traditional packs like this, some of the differences, you get a much more elaborate suspension. Like this particular one's their anti-gravity system. So it's got this kind of trampoline back. It's got a really good frame that runs all the way in and connects into the hip belts. So the hip belts squeeze around your hips really well. It's got big, thick shoulder straps, so it's nice and comfortable. It's got really good load lifters on it, so it can pull the weight off your shoulders, transfer it to your hips really well. You've got a lot of organization with this particular one, and that's not necessarily unique to this Osprey pack. A lot of these types of packs have a lot of storage. You know, this one's got some extra pockets on the front that you can shove stuff in. A front kind of stuff pocket that you can shove rain gear and stuff in. Straps down here at the bottom that you can strap your tent or like a foam sleeping pad or something to. A lot of these traditional packs will even have the bottom pocket. They'll have this bottom pocket down here too that I think originally was designed for sleeping bags. There's a separating kind of sheet in here that I have unhooked because I don't really do it that way. But it'll separate that bottom compartment so you can get to that stuff quicker. When I have used it, I've usually put like a tent in there. I never really understood putting my sleeping bag down there to where I have quick access to it, because it's typically the very last thing I ever pull out. I would never pull my sleeping bag out while I'm on trail, where I would want a pocket to get to it. That never really made sense to me. But I have put my tent down there before. That way, as soon as I get to camp, I can take it out, set up shelter. So it does have that. You have the big lid on it, or the brain, sometimes you'll see it called, where you just have the clips here. I'm trying to do this, looking at the camera. Open this up, and then it's got the drawstring on it that you open. And then that's where you get into the big main compartment of your pack. You've also got quite a bit of storage in this lid too. It's got 2 different zipper pockets to store things. And then on this pack, these are removable as well. So I could take this off, save a few ounces if I know I'm not gonna need that. And the Osprey one still comes with a flap then that will go over the top to cover the opening to your pack. So you just get a lot of features in those. Typically, that's going to be, like, it's for the person who's gonna carry 30, 35 pounds of stuff pretty consistently. Maybe you're the type that, you know, I wanna take a saw, I wanna take a hatchet to process firewood. I like to take lights, just, you know, extra stuff at camp. This pack's gonna do it. The frame in this thing, this pack with the heavier materials, this pack will carry 50 pounds before you're really in danger of stressing that frame out too much, and still do it very comfortably. So that's kind of your traditional, what they're geared towards, those heavier weight packs. You know, this, if I'm being honest, it's kind of a technology that's going by the wayside because gear is getting so much lighter. I mean, even your more affordable options are getting lighter and getting smaller. That Durston tent that I've put on here a ton of times is a perfect example. That's 240 bucks for an awesome sub 2 pound trekking pole tent. Normally you were spending 500 bucks or more to get that. That just wasn't something that the average person or the person just starting out would really want to spend money on. And those cheaper tents are big and bulky and heavy, so you need a pack that can carry that big, bulky, heavy stuff. But because the price of that stuff's coming down, not as many people are doing it. I'll tell you right out of the gate, you know, my buddy Chad is in the Wyoming video. Him and Cody both have this pack, and they absolutely love it. It's their only backpack. I think if you were only going to buy one pack and you want it to cover everything, these are a good starting point. But these will just kind of do everything really well. If you need to load it down, they'll do it. If you're only carrying 15, 20 pounds, they're still going to carry it. It's not like it's not going to work. You do end up with, you've got a lot of dead space, but your sleeping bag and down jacket can just kind of fluff out to fill a little bit of the space. So anyway, that's that. Your lightweight, more traditional option would be something like this. This is the REI Flash 55. Another pack that would be in this that's much more popular would be like the Osprey XO series. These are 2.5 pounds, but still have a good frame. Like this one has a frame inside it, plus this frame sheet on the outside. So this will still carry 35 to 40 pounds. I've had over 35 pounds in this quite a few times, and it's still very comfortable. The Atmos probably would have been more comfortable with that weight, but it was definitely much more comfortable and manageable than if I tried to cram that type of weight in one of these ultralight options. I'd have been miserable. So that's just my opinion. But something like this, you still have, you know, adjustment straps on it. You still have the load lifters on it to take the load off your shoulder. You still have a top brain pocket for organization. It's also removable. You can take that off. It's got the main compartment. This one's more like a dry bag kind of setup. But that's your main compartment to get into. Still got some side pockets to store stuff, water bottles, tent poles, whatever else. Still got your hip belt pockets. So you get a lot of the features of the traditional pack, but these are just geared to be lighter. To me, this is more the perfect style for somebody. Now this is a 55 liter. You're typically not going to find these lightweight traditional ones in much bigger than a 55 liter. I think the Exos you can get a 58. Any bigger than that, you're getting into this more traditional setup. Cody, that was in that Wyoming video, had the Exos 58 and then used it for a while and just found, because again, he goes on a couple trips a year, sometimes a little more, but not as much as me. So a lot of his gear was bulkier, a lot of it was heavier. He didn't want to spend hundreds of dollars on jackets and things, so he's bringing sweatshirts and different stuff like that. And he was really maxing out the 58 liters and the comfort of that pack by the time you'd add food and stuff. So he jumped to the Atmos 65 and he loves it. Absolutely loves it. Doesn't make him any less of a hiker. He still out-hiked Chad and I both on that video. Nothing wrong with that. It's personal preference. But I think these are kind of the direction a lot of people are going. I will tell you right now, I probably use this pack more than any of these other packs every year. And I have bought so many different 50 to 55 liter packs, trying to go with all different ultralight ones of that size. And I always end up coming back to this one. Just the comfort of this, and the Exos would be the same. The extra few ounces in weight to get the extra comfort of a real frame in one of these packs, and the thicker, like this still has really thick shoulder straps, a really thick, comfortable hip belt. You get a lot of comfort for those extra few ounces, so you don't really even notice it. The same load in this feels more comfortable than it did when I tried a certain bright white H logo having pack that I will not badmouth on here, because I'll have thru hikers beating down my door to kick me in the head to say that it's better. Just being honest. Then we jump to the ultralight pack. So now you're getting into the world of, I want to be more that person that the hike is the fun, not necessarily camp. If that makes sense. I'm not saying you can't have fun at camp. I take this pack a lot. Like, I absolutely love this pack, and I can usually get everything I need in this pack, including a chair, and be very comfortable at camp in anything above like freezing temperatures. If it's an overnight, that's where we start getting into if I have to have more food in those layers. Anyway, that's a different video. I can usually get quite a bit in this pack, and I'm still very comfortable. So I'm not saying ultralight can't be comfortable at camp, but I've also spent years collecting gear and spent money on higher end compressible gear. When you get into more of the ultralight packs, so this particular one is probably most of you recognize it on here. This is the ULA Circuit pack. This is technically is a 68 liter pack, so you can cram a lot in here. But because it just has a thin carbon fiber like hoop frame, it can carry weight, but I wouldn't want to carry more than 30 pounds in this for very long. If I knew I was going to be carrying that kind of weight for longer periods, then I would go with one of these other framed options. Now, if it's just because the first couple days I'm out, it's because of all the food and I'm going to eat through a lot of that and the weight's going to drop, then this is a solid pack. This particular one is probably one of the most popular thru hiking packs, specifically for like the Pacific Crest Trail, areas where you have to have a bear can, because it has the space. The 68 liters is nice for that. So this is nice for the bulkier stuff because it's got a lot of, technically it's bigger than the Osprey one. By the time you factor in the big stretchy mesh front pocket, but that had better be some lightweight gear, because if you load this up to capacity in volume and that's not ultralight gear, you're gonna blow that weight limit out of the water, and then this is not gonna be comfortable. So these are really, again, angled towards that person that my main goal is the hike. I've got some lightweight stuff, or that person that's I'm buying this stuff, I want it to be lighter weight, so I'm paying attention to weights of the shelters, hammocks, tents, whatever. I'm paying attention to the weight of my down sleeping bag, down jackets, all my layers. These can be fantastic because this pack only weighs 33 ounces, I believe. I'll put all the links to the specific packs that I'm using in here so you can check the exact specs, but I'm pretty sure it's close to that. So it's very lightweight. If you're that type that's trying to get that base weight around 14, 15 pounds or less, then the pack weight becomes important. Now, if I'm trying to have a 12-pound base weight and I'm carrying a 4.5-pound backpack, it's not gonna happen. This is much lighter. You give up some features. You got two good size side pockets for water bottles. A cook pot will fit in here. You've got the big stretchy mesh stuff pocket on the front, which runs all the way down, which you can get a ton of stuff in. You got one strap on the top, and it opens up, and it's just a giant kind of cavern. So if you're the type that likes all the pockets for organization, then you probably want to go the other direction. These ultralight packs, you typically don't have a ton of organization with them. that's just kind of what I'm used to. This pack does still have, compression straps on each side to cinch it down as you start to eat through that food and lessen the volume in the pack. Got a good solid grab handle to pick it up by. Shoulder straps, decent amount of cushion, but you can see the difference. They're about half as thick as these ones. I don't know if you can see it very well. You just might have to take my word for it. They're about half as thick, but if you're in that 25, 30 pound weight range or less, this is still plenty comfortable. You got a pretty good hip belt on this too, that's nice and comfy, and big hip belt pockets. So you still have access to keep stuff on your hips for snacks and things, easy access stuff. Solid backpack. If you're trying to play that game of, I'm not gonna carry, I don't want a ton of weight, I want something comfortable for the hike. Sometimes, yeah, I may load it down with a bunch of food and fun stuff, but for the bulk of my trips, it's gonna be fairly simple and a lot of hiking. These are great for that. And then you get into the big time ultralight world with the frameless packs. So this has been a craze here lately over the last maybe couple years, at least on YouTube. I don't think I've ever come across someone, even on that section hike on the AT, that was carrying a frameless pack. I've had a couple different ones, some of them even that just don't even have hip belts, because really in a frameless pack, there's not much sense to the hip belt other than it just keeps it snug against you so it's not rocking all over the place. Like this one, this is the Gossamer Gear G420 pack, which I love, it's awesome. But it's still got a good cushy hip belt. More than anything, I mean, it's doing a little bit of load transfer because of the frame sheet, there's the sit pad in the back of it, but there's no load lifters on this pack. So a lot of times that's what the frame is designed to do. It's tied into your hip belt and your pack has the load lifters on the shoulder strap. So when you tighten those, it's taking the load and pulling it this way. So it's pulling it off your shoulders and transferring it to that hip belt. Without load lifters, it's pretty much just sitting on your shoulders. This pack can handle 20 pounds before this starts to sag in on itself. Now all that weight is on your shoulders. I will never understand certain brands of packs that I may have slightly mentioned but didn't, that say they can carry 40 pounds. They have the aluminum stays, but then they don't have load lifters. I'm just saying, again, do with that what you will. I've carried 30, 35 pounds in a pack like that. Nowhere near as comfortable as it is. And even this guy that has a little bit of a frame and some load lifters, that's what they're for. But that all being said, your frameless packs are designed for that person that's 10 pound or under base weight. Like between your pack, your basically base weight is everything except consumables. So everything I'm gonna take with me other than food and water and fuel for the stove, that would be your base weight. If that's 10 pounds or less, then you can get away with this. Unless you're adding another 10 pounds of food, you don't want to be carrying more than 20 pounds. I mean, I carried on this, it's on the channel, the trip in Red River Gorge, there was a spot where we had to carry water up to camp by Hanson's Point. And I carried 6 liters of water in this. So I was carrying well over 20 pounds uphill for about 2 miles. And it wasn't terrible. The shoulder straps and the hip belt are cushy enough that it made it manageable. But if I was doing that all day, like that would have sucked. For that part of the trip, whatever, no big deal. It wasn't a problem. But if you were doing that long term, that would have been miserable. But a lot of times these frameless packs, these things are very, very simple. This particular one, because it still has a hip belt, has hip belt pockets. Some of these frameless packs don't even have hip belts, so you lose that altogether. It's still got pockets on the side for water bottles. This particular one is cut low and it's angled, so I can actually get my water bottle. The other one is taller, so you can put a water bottle in it, or it's designed for like a chair or a shelter or something like that. It's got the giant stretchy mesh pocket on the front that you can really stretch out and get a lot of gear in there. And then a strap on the top that you can strap stuff to, like a sleeping pad or a chair. And then other than that, it's just one big pocket that you shove stuff in. So those are really your different types of backpacks. The whole point of this was just to kind of showcase them and help point you in the direction of which type of pack you should be looking at. Again, if you're seasoned, you already own your traditional backpacks and you're trying to dial your weight back, you're trying to drop base weight, and you're to the point now where you've already upgraded your tents, your sleeping bag, your sleeping pad. That's all real lightweight stuff, a couple pounds for a tent, pound and a half for a sleeping bag, pound for a sleeping pad. Now you're to that point where, all right, we can try to drop some weight and go to a different style pack. If you're just starting out, if you're just starting out and your mindset is that's the kind of hiking I want to do, I want to be able to cover 18, 20 miles a day, ultralight is what I want, then these are the packs that'll get it done for you. You just have to have the right gear for it. If you're just starting out and you're saying, it's not necessarily what I'm after, I just want to go have fun in the woods, I want to have fun stuff at camp, I'm not wanting to spend an arm and a leg on gear, I want to buy used gear, I'm not as worried about weights and everything, I'm not going to spend an extra $100 to drop an ounce or two, then maybe go more the traditional route. That's pretty much it for this. It's just kind of a breakdown about the packs, who goes after what, and how and why you should look at a specific type of the next video, which will come out probably a couple days after this one posts, we'll talk about loading a backpack and the different things to watch out for and how to correctly measure your torso and how a backpack is supposed to fit. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.